Hey there, cartoonists and cartoon lovers. Welcome to a new episode of the Cartoon Pad. I am Bob Eckstein here with co-host Michael Shaw and our showrunner Marty. Every 2 weeks we'll be talking shop about cartooning and discuss how the sausage is made and tackle the most pressing issues of the day concerning gag cartooning. Michael, how was your last 2 weeks?
Honestly, Bob, it was weak. I was weekly humorous.
Are you working on anything?
Oh, only another brilliant installment of the Weekly Humorist brought me out of my funk. And my funks are pretty funky. In fact, I am working on something. I'm working on a new Shawtoons on a Fridge. Bob, and that's an Instagram classic.
Can you share any part of it?
I'm not sharing anything with you. You take and you take and you take. Yes, I will share. Because an Instagram classic Shawtoon on a Fridge is always fresh. Hardly anything's past its best by date. So my latest one will be a shot of George Washington on Mount Rushmore sneezing on a person who's trying to climb Mount Rushmore. I think that makes a lot of sense at this point.
All right. I can see it.
What are you working on, Bob?
I just want to say that, cartoons on the fridge. I don't know if everyone gets that reference because, you go back to when history class was called current events. And I don't know if everyone knows that that was the thing to put cartoons on the fridge. Do people still do that?
I do, Bob, and I'm a person. How about you?
No, we're not allowed. It's part of the aesthetic of the kitchen.
What I found
put cartoons up
was the new refrigerators are not magnetic, and you can't put cartoons on these new stainless steel, pretty looking fridges. You can only put them on the side, which is where mine are now.
Wow. That's why I have a Norge. It's solid steel. It's like a tank.
Oh, those are like the retro ones? I really like the old ones. Those are really cool.
Knock on any Norge. So anyway, Instagram is the new fridge.
Yeah, you're right.
That's, I do have some cartoons on my fridge, but my Instagram account is my fridge.
I got to tell you, the highlight of my career was when I was at somebody's party in Brooklyn and I didn't know the people. I was brought along by friends and I went into the kitchen to get something and I saw my cartoon on their refrigerator door. And it's been downhill since.
Well, that wasn't a very high hill to begin with, but I'm sorry to hear that.
That's a cool thing. Do you have any stories on which you saw someone enjoying your cartoon in some way?
What's funny? Yeah, I did. A workmate of mine wanted a cartoon to give to a friend for Christmas. And I forgot which one I gave it to her. So then later I asked her, well, did your friend like your cartoon? She goes, I kept it and framed it. I go, oh, that's nice. She goes, yeah, it's hanging in my bathroom. I go, well, at least it will always have a captive audience.
You have to be careful with that sort of thing. A friend of mine owns a bookshop in Lenox, Massachusetts, and his bathroom is filled with clippings of James Taylor. James Taylor had come by the store and had gotten some press in the local press, and it was framed and put in the toilet. And he said, all is fine and dandy until one day James Taylor came in to the shop, used the restroom, and came out a little bit perturbed looking.
It's like an homage. I wouldn't care personally.
It's funny. The Society of Illustration has a hallway devoted to cartoons. Most of the building is set up for just illustrators, but they gave the third floor hallway to cartoons. And they have cartoons hanging up and illustrations hanging up in the men's bathroom. I don't know about the women's bathroom, but in the men's bathroom, they have framed work over the urinals.
They have it in the women's bathroom too.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah.
And the Algonquin Hotel
That's very brave of you, Marty.
Is wallpapered in Thurber cartoons.
Well, We have a guest on today who said that Thurber is like one of her big influences, which I didn't know. I was doing a little research on her, and that's something I didn't know and didn't necessarily see in her work. But interesting, all roads go back to Thurber.
Just about. Most of mine do.
Michael, what would you say is the most important thing for a cartoonist?
Sleep. No. Bourbon. Then sleep.
Have you been having difficulty sleeping?
Yeah, it's like the cartoonist's gambit. I see cartoons on my bedroom ceiling, but I just can't seem to find the right caption. What would an aardvark say to an ant?
Are you left-handed?
Why would an aardvark care if an ant is left-handed? But why, yes, I am left-handed.
Michael, you just need the right pen tip. Most pen quill companies are run by righties. You need quality nibs by Quib, a company from the left, and the name cartoonists have trusted for over 2 pandemics. It's old school, no recharging, or hard to remember passwords.
Fellow, I like to cut at your jib.
My favorite Quib nib is the double O. It's stiff and broad.
Just like me after a Manhattan or two.
And Quib, you're seldom going to catch the page and have that pool of black ink destroy hours of hard work before your deadline.
You've convinced me, sir. Where can I find these nibs among nibs?
Wherever quality pen tips are sold. Quib, coming up with funny lines since 1962.
Thanks, Bob. Now back to the cartoon pad.
Okay, let's bring on our guests. Our cartoons have appeared in the New Yorker 500 times, as well as many major publications, including weekly in the New York Times, and also in the Washington Post, Time Magazine, Barron's, the Boston Globe, the Wall Street Journal, Town and Country, Reader's Digest, and Playboy. She appears in multiple cartoon collections, including the complete cartoons of the New Yorker, the New Yorker Encyclopedia of Cartoons, and she's featured in my All's Fair in Love and War cartoon collection. She has written and illustrated 16 books and 4 different cartoon strips, including the popular My Sunday, which appeared in Holland, Scotland, Mexico, and Australia. In addition to all that, Victoria has had art exhibits, performed original radio shows, produced animation, and has starred on the stage in her plays, performing in New York City, London, and the National Museum for Women in D.C. Welcome to the show, the one and only Victoria Roberts.
Hi.
Ahoy.
Victoria.
How are you?
Fantastic.
Hello.
Hello.
Ahoy.
Michael Shaw in Sputnik Land.
In Sputnik Land, I brought my kitty.
Sputnik. Oh, I'm going to put some dogs on.
Uh-oh.
Wait a minute.
Things are
Come on,
getting
Minnie.
off the hook.
This is a little blind dog, but I don't know if she's presentable. Can you see Olive? No, Winnie.
Oh.
Winnie. Hey. But there are other ones too will be coming on.
My cat's
They're
gotten
all
bored,
welcome.
so.
The cat's not scared.
Oh, no. Here, look.
Okay. Okay.
She'll jump on my shoulder at the least appropriate
Hello.
time.
And who's this other gentleman who I haven't met?
And this is Marty.
Hello, I'm Marty. I'm
Hi,
producing.
Marty. Where are you? In real places.
I'm in
I mean,
Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
How nice. How nice. And Bob, are you in New York?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
as well? Pennsylvania.
I'm in Pennsylvania on the eastern end.
So have you got a lot of snow as well?
Yes, we have over 30 inches now totaled.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
I
we
guess
were
it gets
outside
tiring
digging up.
after a while.
Now, where are you calling from?
I live in Mexico. I live about 3.5 hours northwest of Mexico City
Wow.
in a place called San Miguel de Allende. But I grew up in Mexico City, so it's familiar.
So are you on Central Time or Eastern time.
Yeah, I guess it is. What would be Texas would be Central Time, right?
Texas,
Yeah,
yes.
Texas.
So is it cold there right now? Or are you far enough down that?
Oh, it was beautiful today. And I mean, it's chilly inside the house, a little bit chilly, but it's, it's like 80 outside. So,
Wow.
yeah.
We will never hit 80 here.
Ever?
80 is a dream.
What about the summer, though?
I think this is summer. No, it's brisk. I'm by the lake.
Are you from Wisconsin?
No, I'm originally from Missouri.
Missouri?
I'm
Really?
a Missouri lad. Actually, a Missouri lad. It's very technical. From St. Louis.
Where?
From St. Louis.
St. Louis. St. Louis.
Yeah, St. Louis. Me and William S. Burroughs.
It's funny because I had a step grandmother who was from, and they said Missouri, and they were from there. And I also have my great grandmother who was Hungarian, and their family went to Mexico City. And I've recently been getting a whole lot of letters from, what's Kansas City? Is it Missouri?
Yes, Kansas City is the Missouri side.
Right. Well, there are all these relatives who went from Hungary who are still there.
Oh, don't answer those letters.
No.
No.
It's dangerous.
Yes. So George Booth and Charles Barzotti were fairly
Charlie, yeah.
Yes, he worked for Hallmark.
Charlie did?
Yes, in Kansas City.
I didn't realize that.
I forget where George is from. He's from somewhere in Missouri.
He's from the South.
Yes.
But the other person, I think, is Bud Trillin, I think, also from around there.
No, he's famous because he's on the bottle of Arthur Bryant's barbecue sauce. So,
is he?
Yeah, so he called Arthur Bryant's in Kansas City the greatest restaurant on earth. And that's still on the bottle.
But is he there? He's not from there.
I don't think so, no.
I'm not sure.
New York. I'm not sure. New York doesn't. New York where? Oh, that's a dog.
Yeah, there's another New Yorker cartoonist from that neck of the woods, David Borchardt.
Oh, is he from there?
He is. And he's actually, the funny thing is now he's neighbors relatively close to George Booth now, who I just heard from him and Sarah, his daughter.
How are they doing?
Okay. They're okay. They're up there in age. George is, up there in age. He's in his mid-90s, just about. And I spoke to them before the pandemic in person. I had seen them, and they were fine then. And George was doing some work, and he is coming out with a documentary.
Have they finished shooting that?
I think so, but I'm not positive. But I believe it's done.
Yeah.
Oh, so Victoria.
Uh-oh, Mr. Chips. Sorry.
Holy cow! Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
I found him on the street. All my dogs are rescues, and Kippy, come here. I don't know what he's barking at. Let's just see if
Victoria, you do a lot of charity work.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh no, just the dogs. That's all.
No, I see from your you're doing a little research and stuff that you've been involved there with different things in the past. And
I used to actually did one that was really interesting for me anyways. I used to teach these women who were in a homeless shelter in New York City. And then and it's run by an agency that had 3 homes. One was women, but they're only allowed to stay there during the day. And then coincidentally, I did night duty at a synagogue beds. and people from there would come up and spend the night because they're not zoned or whatever to be able to stay there 24 hours. But boy, it was very interesting because they were very strong people to be homeless in New York City.
Wow.
You know?
Well, that's impressive. I want to share quickly. I met my wife kind of through Meals on Wheels.
That was your first date, I understand.
Well, we were classmates in school and we were enemies then. But then 12 years later, she was doing Meals on Wheels, driving the van into very bad neighborhoods that I was very familiar with. I knew how dangerous they were. So I would tag along. And then watching her deal with the homeless people, I fell in love with her. Watching her, the way she handled homeless people was just changed my whole thinking of everything.
And where did you go to school together?
This was at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. So it was art school already.
It was art school, yeah. But we did not like each other at all. Anyway, Victoria, where did you go to school?
I went. You mean art school?
Well, either one, because I know you were born in Manhattan, but then you grew up in Mexico and in Australia. So when did you go to those countries?
When I was four, we went to Mexico. My grandmother actually got a job with a Reader's Digest in Mexico City in Spanish, Selecciones. And my mother was from Argentina. And even though her mother was Welsh, of the people who went to Patagonia, that there were a lot of those people. And I went to a French school in Mexico City. And then we moved to Australia when I was 13.
And you were expelled from that school in Mexico City, I understand.
I was expelled from the Liceo, yeah.
Mon Dieu.
But what I didn't know until recently is that we were asked back, but my mother had to sort of apologize and she wasn't willing to. And I was disappointed because after that, my stepbrother went to the American school. He loved it. And I went briefly, but I didn't like it very much. And
you have quite the international background.
Very, very mixed, very 57 varieties. And my mother's family was they were Hungarian immigrants to Argentina, which is really something.
I think your accent is Esperanto.
Esperanto, the ugliest language ever.
The pretend language.
You're trilingual?
Yeah.
That's a bit personal, Bob.
My mom moved to New York from Buenos Aires when she was about 19. And before that, she had like an Anglo-Argentine accent, which is a bit English, but with a sort of more Spanish-sounding vowels and stuff. And she got an American accent. She got a really American accent and not a New York accent. And she kept that forever and ever. So
that's kind of Midwestern.
I don't know but it was.
You want some more hot dish?
Baby. It was quite shrill.
Oh my.
But I had an American accent growing up, and then at 13 got a bit of the Australian.
You don't have much. Sorry.
It's mixed, but I never thought I would say tomato. Like, no, I thought, oh, tomato. But then one day now I say tomato, and it's not a stretch.
No, we say tomato.
You say tomato.
But we won't call the whole thing off.
Tomato. Did you live in New York at all, Michael?
No, ma'am. In fact, when I started selling to the New Yorker, they say, we like your work, Michael. Don't move to New York. So
don't move here.
Yeah, don't move here. And I was going to have my grand tour. This was when I was working for the Cartoon Bank. And Bob said, come in. My brother-in-law lived in New York, so I could get into New York all the time. And he said, come in. I'll pick you up. We'll go to the Cartoon Bank, and then we'll go down to the office. It's going to be Michael Shaw Day. And when I woke up, it was the first day of the transit strike.
Oh, Michael Shaw Day, indeed.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Right now it's the third Thursday in every August. But
Yes.
Michael, you should clarify when you said Bob, you meant Bob Mankoff.
No, I meant you, Bob.
No, not me.
Oh,
No.
you're not
And I
Bob
do
Mankoff?
appreciate you quarantining from the state. We all
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. I'm doing my
Yeah.
bit.
Have you seen Bob?
We had him in a Zoom talk a few days ago. Me and Marty said hello to him, and he's busy doing his different enterprises. He seemed to be well and sprightly.
Oh, I gave him a cartoon for his last blog post, so he thanked me profusely.
Well, Victoria, when you were a teenager, did you have an inkling that you were talented as an artist, or a theater, or when did you start thinking that this was something you were going to get into?
I guess, well, I worked as a child actor when I was quite young, like 8, in a Mexican theater. It was a theater for children, like children's performances on Saturdays. But the actors weren't all kids. And I loved doing that. But I think that with drawing, I was always really, I remember because my stepbrother did a little Olympics, because we had the Olympics in '68. So we did these mini Olympics at home before, and they were trying to draw the person with the, what's it called? With
the torch.
The torch. And I was able to draw the flames. Everyone else was going like that, and I could draw like flames. And that's when I thought, something's going on.
You've got the gift.
Well, I just, other people couldn't do that. So, I mean, I couldn't go in the sports events, but I think also, we had Abel Quesada, who worked for the New Yorker as a Mexican artist, whose work I knew, and Mexico has a lot of great cartoonists. So I had seen a lot. And also my stepfather got the New Yorker. So I saw the New Yorker a lot. Yeah. But probably not until I got to Australia did I think I could put together drawings and writing and do it seriously.
And I guess the one common thread is storytelling.
Well, I think for me, I'm not that strong on story, which is always a problem with other kinds of work. But I love dialogue. So I like that if a line of dialogue tells a whole story, even if it's not, an arc story. That's why I loved having a couple who ran in the magazine, because it's what you don't say, but that they've been married for a really long time. So the context of the line of dialogue. So it's more my ear, more than anything, more than being a writer, just the dialogue, I think. I love dialogue, and I like ethnic influences on language, like things that come from Yiddish and influence humor, like in Seinfeld and Larry, I can't remember any.
Oh, David.
Larry David, and then other kinds of ethnic humor that comes in and influences, and so on. And of course, then we went to Australia that had the sort of English kind of accent. And there I heard like the Goons and Spike Milligan and all that kind of different, very different humor to the American humor I'd seen, like in the Addams Family and the Munsters, with things we got in Spanish, all dubbed by the same people, so that even Mission Impossible, same voices as Los Locos Adams, as because they were just this group who dubbed everything, which is funny. So.
Wow.
But so it's dialogue probably more than anything.
Your captions always seem to me to be spot on. Like it never feels out of place. I'm a huge fan. And when we first met, it was in the New Yorker office, and you were so kind and so nice to me. It was one of my first times coming in, and that's when we met. And it was such a treat to meet you because I had been following your cartoons, and I learned so much from your dialogue.
Oh, thank you. Well, I always feel I have a very limited, really, drawing. I can draw what I draw, but it's actually quite a limited thing in a way. As Sam Gross used to say, oh, just use the same drawing over and over in the living room and stuff. But the lines of dialogue for me are so important that they get, and they have to fly. They really can't, you can't be sort of earthbound or something. They really have to fly, like dialogue. And in fact, how you put something is often the funniest thing about it. Not so much what you say, and of course, characters informed entirely by dialogue, by what your vocabulary is, by how you say it. You don't see it in a cartoon, but you sort of do from the people. But that is, dialogue is character in a way,
Well, I agree with everything, but I also think your drawings are so special because you add all these details and the patterns and the upholstery and the dresses and everything. It feels so New Yorker to me. To me, that it just says New Yorker cartoon, and it's because the New Yorker is special. And when I was younger, reading the New Yorker, wanting to see what the cartoons are going to be, it made it feel special. It wasn't pedestrian, but you added all these frills, and it made it feel like I was walking into some kind of, stage or something.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I get, it's funny because I have a lot of trouble balancing a drawing, but I like doing patterns. So space-wise, I have trouble doing, where's the line of perspective, even if it's the same drawing. Everything is crooked, the lamps are crooked and stuff. Somehow, if I put in pattern, it marries everything and things work. And It happened to me on a children's book that I was a lot of trouble, and that was color. And I put patterns in, and these sort of flat drawings that weren't really right suddenly worked. So I feel blessed to have patterns. It's like a doodle, really. But I had someone write in who had in the patterns found dirty drawings, like penises and stuff, and highlighted them. And don't let Miss Roberts pull the wool over your eyes. which was quite something. But anyway, someone was looking. But it's funny because I'm thinking what you grew up with. Of course, you're young. I'm trying to think what I grew up with. And I guess it was like the hairy people of Ed Koren, George Booth with all those people and the dogs, and I'm trying to think. And then earlier ones, Thurber a lot, even though I didn't grow up with Thurber.
Yes, Victoria, your couples are much nicer to each other than Thurber's.
He's pretty well.
They're having it. They're having it out.
They're having it out.
Your work always reminded me of Ed Koren's because you were always kind of happy to see them. So you're like reintroducing yourselves to this couple once again and sort of eavesdropping on them.
But there's
I
also,
think, yeah. Go on. Yeah.
I was going to say, there's also this thing about the cartoons not being so emotional, emoting their emotions and showing smiles. But you're the one cartoonist in which the characters are often smiling. And it really is a breath of fresh air. It's something that, when you think about it, it is a happy place to come see. I always immediately get excited of seeing that couple show up when you turn the page. It feels like, it's a different place.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's very exciting. It's because, when I do, I also never am thinking of funny because I'm very serious. It's my work. But in a way, it is my stepfather and my mother. The lady doesn't look like her, but the barbed dialogue usually comes from the woman, and the man has more passive role in that. And but I think even though they fought and it could be kind of barbed dialogue, that there was a lot of love there. So hopefully that saves it. gives it a happy place to be.
Yeah, my favorite cartoon of yours is the Ford Cortina in space.
Oh,
what year are we in, Biscuit?
But you see, to me, that is an example of, I don't know how I did that, but to me, that's really, really strong. And I could never explain it, or it's just, but I think those are the best ones, the ones you don't know how they could possibly have happened,
Well, they have an internal logic all their own. So outside of the frame.
Their own world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I got to share my favorite Victoria Roberts cartoon then. And that's a cartoon that's in the book All's Fair in Love and War. And it's a cartoon of a woman with suitcases. And I'm going to read the caption. I'll find it. It's National Wear History Month. And she's
oh God.
And what's so funny about that is she's all smiles. The great cartoon.
They're always leaving each other. I'm so taken aback by your having favorites of mine that I can't tell you how much that means to me. It's just unimaginable to me.
What you've done is really inspiring to me because I am involved doing books and stuff. And you've done so many that have been so well received and all the different things you juggle and stuff. And I would like to talk a little bit about theater and how you feel about that. I know you have a show coming up next year and how that fits into this in your whole life. How do you balance it all?
I think that, it's funny when you say that about the cartoons, because I always feel whenever and I'm sure you guys feel this when you have the blank piece of paper there, I just feel, I don't know, I don't have anything to say. I'm not going to be even doing anything here because it's ridiculous. And then ideas start to come in. And I always thank the New Yorker because I have a weekly deadline. And I have had a weekly deadline for 30 years or so. And having that, and in that weekly deadline, I used to do 20 ideas a week. And I would be embarrassed because I would look in the drawer and every one of them was like a home run. They were terrific. And I remember saying to Lee Lorenz, who was the editor at the time, I said, I'm embarrassed, because some of these they're not even anything. And he said, never edit the batch, the group that they say. And as soon as he said that, I just let go and I do anything. And what I find is that maybe 3 months down the line, something that I did, I don't usually remember them, but something will have evolved from another idea. So I feel that one of the greatest blessings, apart from the people that I've met at the magazine and friends I've made has been that weekly deadline. And also the fact that because cartooning is such a complete, stage, dialogue, characters, you've got everything in a way. So it's wide open. And that's quite a luxury, really, for a person working, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But theater, I guess, I've always loved theater. And really, when I moved to New York, I had seen LSD by the Wooster Group several times, because I had a boyfriend who was a stage designer, and somehow he was in touch with the Wooster Group because he was designing something for a festival, and I got a pass to see. I could go and see LSD as many times as I wanted. And I got so excited about the Wooster Group because I felt talking about, language and everything, that their theater really used American English in a very special way. Like you might think, oh, the Brits do theater and they've got Shakespeare in English and they've had it forever and ever and ever. But the Wooster Group was so contemporary and so wonderful. And I moved to New York because of the Wooster Group. Not because I was going to be in it or anything, but just because I loved it.
And when did you move to New York?
In 1985, I think. Yeah.
I see. But see, now I was asking about the show coming up this year, but it's in Australia and you're in Mexico.
Well, I've got the couple that I put in the magazine, and then I've got another character called Nona Appleby, who's an Australian octogenarian. I used to work weekends in a nursing home, and I worked there for 3 years when I was at art school. And the people there really had a very different accent and way of speaking. And Nona speaks in the way people who were in their 70s, 80s spoke when I was 16. And she was just a gift. She's a very fully formed character. But she always has more dialogue than can go in a cartoon. So I tried to do strips or whatever. But the best thing was really doing theater, because then you can do, and I got some help from some Canadian directors and things, and was able to play Nona, but with a wig and stuff. So I play Nona Appleby, and I accompany the show with drawings. She doesn't draw because she doesn't draw, but she's the character. And it's funny because she's a lot smarter than I am. She's like, I could say this for myself and say, hello, I want to go skiing, and could you get me in somewhere there for the vaccine and a ski holiday? That's Nona. So
okay.
She's very fashion forward, isn't she, Victoria?
Very fashion forward and fruit forward. And that I want to visit. Michael's got exotic birds at his place.
What do you know about my birds?
I can see them. There's cats, there's birds.
You mean my budgies?
Budgerigars, you could be in Australia, Michael. Why aren't you in Australia? Why aren't we all in Australia? There's no COVID.
It's warm there now.
There's no COVID. It's absolute paradise. There's the seaside everywhere you go except Ayers Rock. It's marvellous.
Where is the best place to avoid the pandemic between the two places? Is there one preference? Are you staying in Mexico because of anything to do with COVID?
No, I live here, and we're getting the Sputnik vaccine, which is one dose.
Oh.
And some people are leaving the country and going to the United States and getting the Pfizer one. And there are all sorts of scenarios of vaccine envy popping up all over the world. But no, I live in Mexico, and And I got a producer and director for a Nona show in Australia, and it would have been this year. But then the pandemic came up, and so that was all canceled because, the theaters are going under. There's no work for anyone, and hopefully Broadway will be okay, but it's a long time for so many people to be out of work, not just the actors, but all of like wardrobe and everything to do with this.
And will you come up to New York City? I mean, I know that you performed a lot at Dixon Place.
I think what I want to do now is somehow incorporate, I was always thinking, with video, I took a video mapping course, and you can sort of put a drawing on any surface. But that's a very high-tech and sort of expensive show. And what I wanted to do is try to make, I did one show here where I made a lot of animals and painted props. I want to be able to make things out of paper and have a show that fits into a suitcase. I have a friend here called Astrid Haddad who does a wonderful singing show, and her costumes are made by are often designed by a French illustrator, Bruno Fourrure, who lives in Mexico City, and her show fits in a suitcase. And I just thought if a show could just be in a suitcase and be a traveling show that could be on in small venues, that's what I would like to do.
You might bring back vaudeville.
Because exactly. If there were vaudeville now, that's where I would be. Because I can't do stand-up. That has jokes. You have to hit. And people say, not anymore. You don't, listen. But it's still jokes. It's too hard when you have monologue like I do. You just don't survive on that stage. But more like a vaudeville, which is a more forgiving theatrical moment than stand-up. I mean, I'd love to, if I could write stand-up, I'd do that because you could work all the time.
I don't doubt that you could do it. If you wanted to, I'm sure.
It's really hard to write. It's very, very hard to write. If you look at those, they're joke after joke, actually. And a lot of stand-up is sort of self-deprecating as well, which is, so it makes it very sad too.
Yeah.
And
but
Nona's not really.
There is a new style of comedy, which is partly based in Australia with the stand-up Hannah. The stand-up
Hannah Gadsby is extraordinary.
And it's very confessional, and it's a different brand of humor where it isn't rapid-fire jokes, but it's a whole different expectation from the audience that the audience could have. They can embrace silence, and they can embrace parts of their stories that are not always just trying to be funny.
Yeah, but she is really funny. There's like in the first show, she deconstructs stand-up, which is absolutely brilliant. And I think in the second one, I don't remember the second one as much, but it's still it's not like I was even thinking of Eddie Izzard, who goes all over the place and then comes back, but it's still a really hard thing to do on stage. I think the hardest.
I love Eddie Izzard.
Gentler environment.
Since you brought up Eddie Izzard, have you performed at Edinburgh Festival?
Never. I just thought, I've done Nona over the years, but I think I never had that much confidence. And so I didn't do it as the main thing. I was a cartoonist. So even though I had come to New York, not to be a cartoonist and illustrator, I didn't have quite the thing to say, oh, I'm a performer. And I think I'm finally getting there now in my 60s.
Now that there's a pandemic.
Pandemic, actually, when I don't have to go out there. So it's fantastic. It's fabulous to perform. There is something about it which is really like walking a tightrope, and every audience is different, and there's something about the time also, because it's really a lot about, I don't mean timing jokes, just the way you do things. And I really like a circus act actually called The Invisible Circus, which is Victoria Chaplin and a guy called Jean-Baptiste Thierry. And I don't know if you've ever seen them. They've been around for years. Have you ever seen them?
I'm afraid not.
No, and he does things where it's just ridiculous. He'll come out and he'll put up a sort of a tapestry of a landscape, and then he'll open his coat and there's another landscape, and then he's got this thing that says Paris. I mean, it's very, it's all very handmade and very light, but I like them a lot. Sorry, it loses a lot in my description. But
it's good to hear who your inspiration is and who you like and what makes you laugh.
Well, I think the most exciting person I've seen, and I don't remember her name, is she wrote I Might Kill You, what's on HBO, and she's a Black performer from England, and she also did, is it called Popcorn, or I may have to look this up. She tells a story, and this is a series, in a way that nobody else does. She's so original. I Might Kill You, or I Might Have to Kill You. You haven't seen it?
I May Destroy You.
I May Destroy
That's
You.
it. Thank you so much. I May Destroy You. What's her name?
Marty's our fact checker.
Michaela Cole.
And then
Michaela.
and then she did another one before, Popcorn or something. Anyway, she's extraordinary looking, doesn't look like anyone else. And the way I May Destroy You is very heavy going. But
Victoria, what did you think of Fleabag?
I thought she was extraordinary too, and would have mentioned it if I could remember her name.
I was fairly mesmerized the whole time. I thought she was just talking to me.
At first, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can. And then I got into it. This is what I mean about different ways of, it's very exciting when you see Fleabag, or you see This May Destroy You, or whatever.
Are you enjoying the period pieces like Bridgerton and The Crown? Are you finding them interesting? I love The Crown too.
I loved Frost Nixon. And, people say, oh, this is true in The Crown and this isn't. And I think he just is able to imagine people's lives so well. I don't care if it's not.
I don't think that's the point.
Exactly. It's interpreting the royal family. And the last season was just wow.
Oh, don't tell me. I haven't seen it.
It's really good. Bridgerton, I find the Shonda Rhimes I really like as a sort of guilty pleasure.
Yes.
But sometimes I didn't so much get into Bridgerton, but it could be that I've watched so much during the pandemic to avoid writing my show that I'm just videoed out. But it's, I don't know what else was I watching. I really like Steve McQueen, the director.
Oh yeah,
he did Shame, He did 7 Years a Slave, but I don't consider that. But he's got some films on HBO that are about growing up as a West Indian in London. And they're kind of heavy going, but he's really interesting. There's so many interesting. I loved Schitt's Creek.
And who doesn't really?
And who doesn't? There are just so many good things out there. What do you like best, if you could say that, if you can even say that?
My choices are pretty esoteric. I'm a big fan of James May, who was a presenter on Top Gear. And he put out a series called Oh Cook, where he teaches himself to cook. It's a cookery show for someone who can't cook.
That sounds great, actually.
I think I'm the only one that's ever watched it.
Do you watch like the British Baking Show and things like that?
Sure.
I just perpetually watch The Avengers and The Prisoner.
I'm going to throw out a recommendation. There's a series on Netflix called The Midnight Diner, which is a Japanese sitcom. And it takes place in a diner that doesn't open till midnight. And they have all these stories. And as you can imagine, nothing about this show is normal.
Oh, that sounds great.
Or this show.
But, any others that you have that you love?
Call My Agent is just delightful.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. It's so well pieced together. Everything that happens on that show is with a purpose.
But it's ended, really. It's not going to go on.
I know. Well, Victoria, I want to ask you about your own work schedule. What is a routine day for you? Do you have a sort of a way you work? For the cartoonists out there who are listening, a lot of people would like to know how someone like yourself sort of has a routine, and if you have one.
I'm really a terrible procrastinator, and I work to deadline. So I work at the last possible, and if I'm writing a show, I usually schedule a reading or work in progress or meeting with someone who I'm working with, or I will not do anything and watch, other things, or garden. That's a new thing, or play with my dogs, or my Mandalorian baby doll.
Oh my.
So I've got a few of them. Did you watch The Mandalorian?
I have not.
It's not the show. It's that the baby is like Yoda, but it's a baby. But it's 50 years old. It's not actually a baby.
That sounds frightening.
Can I bring it and show you?
Please.
Okay, hold on.
Victoria Roberts is now retrieving her Mandalorian doll.
Michael, I feel so boring compared to Victoria's life. I mean, the whole thing of, she had a play. It's in Australia, though. She's living in Mexico. So cosmopolitan.
I like, I live in Manitowoc and I get to Sheboygan once in a while. So there you go.
For me, a big trip is like making a trek down to the basement.
Oh, the Mandalorian's here.
I decided to give in to my, the worst, buy anything I wanted, right? So look at this. Well, first here's just a Mandalorian baby.
Oh my God.
But it's like Yoda, but it's a baby. And it's got its carrier bag. But this one's amazing. This one just arrived. And hold on.
Are they different? Oh my.
Well, that would give me nightmares.
My
See,
children.
it's holding up its hand. Look, I'll do it again because it's
Oh,
holding
my.
up.
Victoria, this podcast, we were early talking about Free Britney, and me and Michael were trying to brainstorm how we could capitalize on this fascination with freeing people. Do we need to come down and free you from these characters? This
You
is
know,
very scary. I'm really worried for you.
I love them. I used to like troll dolls when I was a kid. But even like the ears are soft. Oh, they're quite good. But do
They
I
look
need
delicious.
to be? Is this a hostage situation? Is what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of is. But I don't know if you can risk going. We have a lot of COVID now,
Oh my!
and I'm not sure that you can risk
Keep the
going over
dog.
the board.
Keep the dogs away from them.
You know, now I have to ask you, where did you get these? Are these homeless and you find them on the street, or you get them?
Oh no! I first saw them. I first saw the show for some reason. I think I was looking up the guy who plays the Mandalorian, who's always masked, is a Latin American actor, Carlos something or other. He's also in the new Wonder Woman. He's the baddie. But
yes.
So I was looking up something about him, and I saw this amazing sort of puppet, and I always like the children's television workshop ones and stuff, and this baby on the screen is amazing, and it's actually worth it if you have Disney to also look at how they've produced it, because instead of everything being green screen now, they project their backgrounds onto these LCD screens. So when they're doing stuff, they're really on what you're going to see on camera. It's technologically very interesting.
Now, did one of those trolls just let themselves in? Is that what we heard?
No, it's the dogs are running after each other because
this
they
sounds
know
like a cry for help.
It is a cry for help, isn't it?
The Mandalorian just ate the dog. So, were you ever into the Teletubbies? My kids were.
Oh, I love the Tubbies.
So I did a cartoon once. Only you will understand this. It was the Teletubbies as created by Damien Hirst. So they're all suspended in liquid. See?
I get that. Come on.
And did you sell that here?
I have never sold that anywhere. You're the first person I've ever told this to.
Michael, you have another Teletubby baby cartoon too.
Do I?
Yeah. I remember because you used spot color on it too.
I have to remember that one. My kids were also way into the Wiggles, I have to confess.
The Wiggles?
Before the Wiggles were big.
Were the Wiggles Australian?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're huge. They're like the Beatles.
What's the bananas in pajamas? Is that Wiggles?
Oh, I don't know. They were big red car.
Victoria, you talking about the banana splits?
That's the 60s.
I know that, but Victoria's all over the place. So she could be back there. It could be banana splits.
Bananas in pajamas. It's a kids show.
So, Victoria, do you drink tea or coffee?
Both.
Okay. Do you eat?
But I drink really strong tea, Australian style. Or I guess, Australian style.
Is it chips or crisps?
Darling, for me, it's chips. And I know it's wrong, but chips. Have you heard of a chip butty?
Yes, I have a chip butty. It's a sarnie with butter and chips.
Yeah, I've never had one, but you have an English side to you, Michael.
I there's a long story, but I've applied for British cartoon citizenship.
Victoria, Michael thinks he's
Can you?
British.
I'm actually.
He has that feel to him. You do. You
It's
really
his whole
do.
thing.
I think I'm actually Northern Irish. I think I'm an Ulster, a Unionist.
Well, Shaw is Irish, no?
No, it's
Is it?
British.
Is it British?
Yes, and I thought I was. I thought I was Irish, but now I'm fairly sure I'm Northern Irish. So
Isn't it both? Why don't you write? I think we should all write to Henry Louis Gates
okay,
and do a show so we can find out that Michael is really British.
Yeah.
And Bob is from
Bob is German.
I'm Pennsylvanian.
Pennsylvania German, not Dutch.
Yeah, I'm a little of everything. I'm part Greek, part Turkey.
Well, I looked up the name Eckstein, and it means it's German for a rock with that you have to lift from the knees.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No, I think it just means stone. And my wife's name is Tamar Stone.
Tamar Stone?
Right. So she's her name is my name, and yeah, translated. That's the only way we were allowed to get married. I mean, we had to get that in sync.
Between a rock and a stone in a hard place.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
With they used to do that with the names like Spinoza, a thorny place, and they would change names. Like, so I have Hungarian ones, but I'm not sure if this is true, whose name was Spitzer, and it was later Hegyesi. And I don't know if that is a translation of whatever Spitzer meant.
Oh,
That's a popular name.
Spitzer.
He must have been popular in the gym class.
Hegyesi?
Victoria, there's a bit by Eddie Izzard about Engelbert Humperdinck's name. You got to check it out on YouTube.
I'll look it up.
It's one of my favorites.
So I have a cartooning question, if I could, yes. I've read that originally your roughs were very ephemeral, like barely there. And that
they're very rough. Yeah. I do them very fast. But the thing is, I remember that the thing is that in the gesture, there's usually, I don't know if you have this, but I often like the roughs more than the finished art, because there's something about, usually in the rough, there's the energy that needs to be there and the important stuff, the important gesture, the position, and all of that, even though it's,
yes, I was doing some extreme trolling, and there's some images of your drawing table, and there's some roughs sitting there. And they're very Thurber-esque. I mean, they're extremely abstract. And I wrote down one of the gag lines underneath, and it was, "You're juggling me again, Peter. And as I told you, I won't be juggled." So did you ever finish that one?
Yes, I think I did. But
because if you didn't, you can go back.
I can go back. I don't go back a lot. Do you go back a lot and look at things and?
No, I don't give things up though. So all my drawings are just.
If you have an idea,
Oh yeah. It goes.
I think the Teletubbies, you might have to do them as an installation.
Yeah. If I could have success with the cartoon, I might move on from there, but not.
Michael, you're
so
like
far
the
not.
Moody Blues, looking for that perfect chord. I've seen you do drawings that you just you're enamored with the drawing, and I know you're waiting for the perfect caption to
That's
come
right.
Driving by.
Do you do that? Do you do the drawing first and then?
No, I come up with the idea first. I have this device I call the Gagalog, and it's just this long document with random thoughts. And then I'll go try to find an image. And then once I find the image, I try to make it look like a cartoon eventually. At some point, it's a cartoon-like object. And then I set it aside and let it marinate. And then you'll pull it back out. And sometimes, like you said, it will magically kind of assemble itself before you.
And why did you choose cartooning?
Because I have a BFA in painting. And I said I emerged in St. Louis. I went to school there. I said I emerged in the Midwest, finding the demand for neo-expressionists waning. So, as a painter, I made a pretty good waiter, but I also discovered I couldn't paint. And my drawing is very iffy too, but it all made me a perfect cartoonist. Well, not a perfect one, but an appropriate one.
And what about you, Bob? Why did you choose cartooning?
No, it was just a dare from Sam Gross. I was a writer and I was doing illustration and design, and I had become friends with Sam, and he took me to one of the lunches for my birthday. Wasn't long after that we met. And what happened is that I had some success with the cartoons. I had started doing cartoons for other magazines, and then it kind of snowballed
into a snowman.
Yeah. I don't know if Victoria knows this, but I'm the world's leading snowman expert.
Are you the leading snowman expert? I think I have heard that, but why?
Yeah, it's a good question. Why? I got that title. I traveled around researching the subject for like 7 years. Spent a lot of time going through Europe to different art institutes and libraries and collecting all these experts like professors and art historians to help me figure out who made the first snowman.
And did you find out who you think
Pretty
started
much.
them?
Yeah, I found like really early artifacts. The earliest was a drawing on the margins of an illuminated manuscript dated 1380. And this was at the Royal Library at The Hague. This is all before cartooning. I had hired Sam and a bunch of other cartoonists to help me make an intermission in my book, The World's Greatest Snowman Cartoons. And I went to the Cartoon Bank to do this and the New Yorker. And they gave me cartoons. I didn't know much about cartoons. And I quickly ran out of money. And I had like about 2 or 3 spaces left. So I figured, well, I'll just do it myself. And those were my first cartoons. I just drew them in myself. And in this way, I kind of met the different cartoonists. And I got a chance to get familiar with some of these cartoonists. I actually had met Sam earlier at a Playboy party. I was a writer for Playboy. I met Leo Cullum and people like that.
Did you know Michelle Urie, who was
Absolutely. She was my boss.
She was so great.
She was
wonderful.
Yeah, there's so many people who have left us who are just so nice. I found through the cartoon world, so many people are so nice. I mean, like Leo Cullum, for instance, was so marvelous. And today is Gayam Wilson's birthday. And I had met him a couple of times. Before you leave us, Victoria, can you share some of your favorite memories of different people in cartooning and stuff?
I think that my best friends are from who I met cartooning. One whom I'm in touch with almost every day, Huguette Martel, who did some things when Bob Gottlieb was editor, and they're more she's more of does paintings with not really captions, but she really tells stories. I met her there, and gosh, I remember Ed Fisher, who's long gone, and my friend Ann Hall, who was Lee Lorenz's assistant for a really long time. And she's one of my dearest friends. Kathy Osborne, who was a covers person. And I got to know a lot of fellows later. And that was Frank Modell, who was fabulous, and Jim Stevenson, I got to know later. And Arnie Levin is one of my best friends, and I'm in touch with him still.
How is
I'm trying to
Arnie
think.
now?
He's good. He's good. I just spoke to him. It was his birthday. And
I
I'm
wished
trying
him
to
a
think
happy
of
birthday. I knew that. Yeah.
I will. I'm trying to think of funny stories. You know, in the old days, you could go in, you were told when to come in. And I was told to come in on a Wednesday. And that was an older group of people like Frashino and Arnie and Dana Fraden and Ed Fisher. And they were all my pals. Bernie Schoenbaum. We all used to go to lunch. Now on Tuesdays, it was Roz and Mick Stevens and Jack Ziegler and a fellow from Washington, D.C., Peter Steiner. And I didn't really get to know them till a bit later because, because I would go in, because I knew the old crowd more. But I think probably the friend, if I think about a career, that the best things I got out of it have been the friends. You know, I love doing the work and everything, but the treasure of the people has been quite something. And other people at the magazine, like Mary Norris and Dee Norris, who I met through her, and gosh, I'm trying to think, Nancy Franklin, different, and it was more than, for me, it was more than a magazine, and maybe that's a bad thing, but it was really a home, So, and I remember Michelle Urie used to say, cartoonists, excuse me, have usually been locked up all week on their own. So I invite them to lunch first so that they can relax. And, it is solitary session. So the going to the magazine and seeing everyone, and in those days it was a closed group, was really a kind of relief and a support, because you would have, and Sam, Sam, who was always the heart of the lunches and everything.
I saw Sam not too long ago in the middle of this. He's doing great. He's
doing great.
Yes, he's okay. He's fine. He I believe he got the first vaccine, and he's still getting around. He goes to his studio. He's been doing cartoons. He's been recovering from hip surgery, so he's walking a little bit.
He's
whatever.
Good as new, probably.
Well, he was funny. He was in good spirits, and he was more interested in making sure everyone else was okay and asking how I was instead of talking about himself. He's
I
great.
think it's a good. I think it was always a good group of people, and I don't know. People used to say that. Well, you were a writer, probably not you, but that the cartoonists. I never felt that it was competitive between us, because I felt that everybody had such a different thing to say that it was more of a family or brotherhood or something like that, Gosh.
You were a fraternity.
Fraternity, that's the word. Gosh.
That's the word. Fraternity.
But it was, so you used to come to the parties, Michael?
Oh, no, I avoid New York. I'm sorry.
No, but I've met you there at the parties. And
I was at the launch of the giant book.
Oh, the giant.
The massive encyclopedia. But I've always sent in remotely. I've never been to a drop-off day. So why start now?
It's probably better because there's nothing more excruciating than sitting there while they're going through your drawings.
I used to, it was funny. I would go there on off days when I was working with Bob for the catalog that we used to put out. And I would show up and there wouldn't be any other cartoonists there. So I sort of avoided them. But that's my problem.
What was hard, I think, before it was like a closed group, and then it was opened out, and that made it harder, because if you felt shy and there were people you didn't know, and then you wouldn't see them again the next week. And
I did get to know Ann Hall. She was very nice to me.
Annie's great.
Yes.
And she's a really good friend. I'm still in touch with Annie. And
tell her Michael Shaw says hello. She'd always shush me. She goes, "Shh, Michael." Yes.
She'll do a thing where I'll be on the phone with her and I'll say something and she'll go, "Batch." And I'll write it down so that maybe it'll work as a cartoon. But who am I thinking of Jim Stevenson and also Bud Handelsman. He was great. I mean, people who are long gone. Ed Fisher was a really, really good friend. And trying to think who we used to hang out with. Dana Fraden playing the piano. And I think the Frank Cotham never comes in either. He's stayed away.
I hear from Frank. He's not mobile right now, but he's down in, I believe, North Carolina. That's what happened. Everyone went away in different directions.
Yeah, and what about the COVID for you guys? Like, has it changed anything? Or, I mean, apart from what's changed for us all in terms of how have you coped with it and families and stuff?
Well, my studio's always been in the basement. Now my office is, so
it's not that different.
I've got economies of scale on my side.
For me, it's changed everything because I had all these plans for 2020, and I was making a living doing certain things from certain clients that are no longer with us. So many clients left. I actually pivoted, began teaching, and I even got involved in some harebrained scheme where I wrote this book with this nut job about stress, and
it stressed you out.
Yeah, and it was a whole elements of stress. Oh, it's actually Michael I wrote this with, and we wrote a book about how to deal with the pandemic. And Victoria, as a thank you, you have to share with me your mailing address so we could send you a copy of the book, because
I want to see. Marty, let's see, the elements of stress with Michael. Let's see, and the pursuit of happy-ish and current.
Shitestorm.
Yeah.
Well, second edition is pretty good.
Oh, that was easy. We could actually go
bestseller.
Yeah, it was just that was an easy tweak on the cover.
That's great.
It started out as it started out as a parody of the Elements of Style.
Oh, really?
Yes, and we tried to collaborate on that and couldn't do it since we couldn't get along. So we decided on stress instead. Something we both understood.
We cannot work together. We do not get along, but now we're legally married.
There we go.
So
why fight it?
It's a common law marriage.
How did you start working together if you were not really in the same place? Or
I was a big fan of Michael's, and less so now, but I'm one of his biggest fans.
And I said, let's work. What? I said, let's work remotely. The more remote, the better.
Yeah.
Because I think to be working with someone would be fabulous, really.
I think it's good challenge, and I think you have to try new things. I mean, that's one thing about you, is you're trying all these different things. That's why I said earlier, it's so inspirational that you you don't sit still.
Oh, I don't know. I think I've sat still for a long time. I think you'd have to, and I think, when you get these hunches, like you think you're British, or you feel British, or you feel this or that, one has to go with those hunches. When I think back, every hunch and some I just like repressed because I thought, oh no, you're insane, or you're too old, or you're this, that, and the other. They were all good directions from one's soul or whatever's going on. So I think it's important to heed them a bit,
Very good
I
advice.
say to you young persons.
Well, that's a great place to end, I think. I want to end on a high note, and that's a high note.
Well, I look forward to seeing the film of the snowmen.
Yeah, I just turned in a script.
I think
Into
it would
the
be
shredder.
terrific.
Put it right
No,
in the shredder.
not the shredder. Not the shredder. No. It would be terrific, and you've got all the material.
Exactly. Victoria,
Yeah.
where can we find some of your work aside from the New Yorker pages? Is there something else we could look out for where we could see some of your work?
I'm starting to work for a new gardening garden. I'm looking it up to see what it's called. When I find it, I'll send it to you. I pretty much work for the New Yorker and not so much. I don't do illustration very much anymore. Or I'm retired, darling. I'm retired. Something like that.
You're a pensioner.
I am a pensioner.
For now.
You are English. You are.
What's for tea?
A full English breakfast.
Fry up.
Cooked tomato and sausage and blood pudding.
Black pudding.
Blood pudding.
Don't
Beautiful.
forget the bachelor beans.
Is that just like baked beans? Is
Yes.
bachelor beans?
Yes.
Because that's what they eat out of a can.
Yes.
I tried to find tinned beets here in the supermarket. They don't have them. And they don't have those nice Heinz British beans. Oh boy.
How about Branson pickle?
And the one for the mustardy one, piccalilli or something like that.
Yes.
Terry, my grandmother used to like that. Gherkin sandwich.
Gherkin sarnie.
I was watching. You've got to go. I wanted to tell you that I watched Jacques Pepin.
Jacques Pepin.
Jacques Pepin, and he made a James Beard onion sandwich.
Happy cooking.
You could actually take over for Jacques Pepin.
I like Jacques and Julia.
Victoria, you're welcome to come back anytime.
Yes.
Next time you come back, you got to do cooking.
Yes,
we have
we'll do
to
cooking.
do something.
Cooking would be fun.
Yes,
but,
cooking with cartoonists.
Onion sandwich is, someone was going to do or did a cartoonist cookbook. But the onion sandwich is actually looks very good.
Sounds like a train wreck.
I'll do the toad in the hole.
And what is toad in the hole? What's that?
It's a sausage in a pie, basically. Like everything's in a pie.
Everything's in a pie. I think I think Emily is the one who's a baker. I don't know if she's a cook so much, but certainly a baker. But
you have to watch the James May Oh Cook. You'll enjoy it. It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, I love him. I'm going to check that out.
What's it called? James May.
It's called Oh Cook.
O apostrophe cook.
Yeah. O-H, comma, cook.
And Michael, is it on Netflix?
No, it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, thanks. That a lot of good that does me.
Well, I
You
steal
know
it from
on
my
Amazon.
I steal it from my daughter.
I'll get in touch with her.
Yes, they do.
And Michael, can you see your kids, or are you in a cocoon thing, or?
No, yeah, my kids are in other states, and they told me to keep it that way.
This is before the pandemic, Victoria.
Yes.
He was quarantined for years.
My daughter lives in California.
Your daughter, is
Yes.
that the eldest daughter?
Yes, the only daughter. And my son lives
Michael,
in Cincinnati.
you don't do any work for the British mags?
I will. I used
Don't
to be.
encourage him.
Yeah, no, I was in Prospect, but their cartoons shrunk to the size of a postage stamp and then disappeared.
But there was that one that was quite good. What was it called?
There's a bunch of magazines there. There's The Spectator, Private Eye, The Oldie.
That's Spectator and the Oldie.
Yeah, I'm in those magazines. Then surely you can get in.
I'll check with Shirley.
Shirley can get in.
Yeah, good old Shirley.
Shirley!
All right, I've taken this far enough off the
You
rails.
guys, I look forward to talking to you when it's not being recorded.
Well, Victoria, it was very sweet for you to join us. We really enjoyed this.
I did. It's very nice to see you again, Victoria.
Stop talking. I just better go.
Victoria, take care of yourself and be well.
Lovely to see you.
Nice
And I
to
want to
meet
see
you.
the snow movie. The snowman movie.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
Michael. Ta-da,
Bye-bye,
Michael.
Victoria. Tra-la.
Bye-bye, Margie.
Bye-bye.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Farewell. We're on the Lusitania.
I don't know how you turn this off. I'm leaving.
Hey, I want to thank all the cartoonists and cartoon lovers out there. Until next time, stay well, stay funny, stay 6 feet back.